Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Tonight we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13. The behavior of a perfect person. Sri Narada Muni said, text number 1, a person able to cultivate spiritual knowledge should renounce all material connections, and merely keeping the body inhabitable, he should travel from one place to another, passing only one night in each village. In this way, without dependence in regard to the needs of the body, a sannyasi should travel all over the world. A person in the renounced order of life may try to avoid even a dress to cover himself. If he wears anything at all, it should be only a loincloth, and when there is no necessity, a sannyasi should not even accept a danda. A sannyasi should avoid carrying anything but a danda and a kamandalu. The sannyasi, completely satisfied in the self, should live on alms begged from door to door, not being dependent on any person or any place. He should always be a friendly well-wisher to all living beings and be a peaceful, unalloyed devotee of Narayan. In this way, he should move from one place to another. The sannyasi should always try to see the Supreme, pervading everything, and see everything, including the universe, resting on the Supreme. During unconsciousness and consciousness, and between the two, he should try to understand the self and be fully situated in the self. In this way, he should realize that the conditional and liberated stages of life are only illusory and not actually factual. With such a higher understanding, he should see only the absolute truth pervading everything. Purport: the unconscious state is nothing but ignorance, darkness, or material existence, and in the conscious state one is awake. The marginal state between consciousness and unconsciousness has no permanent existence. Therefore, one who is advanced in understanding the self should understand that unconsciousness and consciousness are but illusions, for they fundamentally do not exist. Only the Supreme Absolute Truth exists. As confirmed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 9.4, Mayata tamidang sarvam jagadavyakta murtina mastani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. By me and my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything exists on the basis of Krishna's impersonal feature. Nothing can exist without Krishna. Therefore, the advanced devotee of Krishna can see the Lord everywhere without illusion. Since the material body is sure to be vanquished, and the duration of one's life is not fixed, neither death nor life is to be praised. Rather, one should observe the eternal time factor, in which the living entity manifests himself and disappears. Purport: the living entities in the material world, not only at the present, but also in the past, have been involved in trying to solve the problem of birth and death. Some stress death and point to the illusory existence of everything material, whereas others stress life, trying to preserve it perpetually and enjoy it to the best of their ability. Both of them are fools and rascals. It is advised that one observe the eternal time factor, which is the cause of the material body's appearance and disappearance, and that one observe the living entity's entanglement in this time factor. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore sings in his Gitavali, Anadi karama phale, poddi bhavarnava jali, taribhari nadeki upai. One should observe the activities of eternal time, which is the cause of birth and death. Before the creation of the present millennium, the living entities were under the influence of the time factor, and within the time factor, the material world comes into existence and is again annihilated. Bhutva praliyate. Being under the control of the time factor, the living entities appear and die, life after life. This time factor is the impersonal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives the living entities, conditioned by material nature, a chance to emerge from this nature by surrendering to Him. Literature that is a useless waste of time, in other words, literature without spiritual benefit, should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood, nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments, nor should one take shelter of any cause or faction. Purport: a person desiring to advance in spiritual understanding should be extremely careful to avoid reading ordinary literature. The world is full of ordinary literature that creates unnecessary agitation to the mind. Such literature, including newspapers, dramas, novels, and magazines, is factually not meant for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Indeed, it has been described as a place of enjoyment for crows, tadvayasam tirtam. Anyone advancing in spiritual knowledge must reject such literature. Furthermore, one should not concern himself with the conclusions of various logicians or philosophers. Of course, those who preach sometimes need to argue with the contentions of opponents, but as much as possible, one should avoid an argumentative attitude. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya says, there is no need to take shelter of unnecessary literature or concern oneself with many so-called philosophers and thinkers who are useless for spiritual advancement. Nor should one accept a disciple for the sake of fashion or popularity. One should be callous to these so-called shastras, neither opposing nor favoring them, and one should not earn one's livelihood by taking money for explaining shastra. A sannyasi must always be neutral and seek the means to advance in spiritual life, taking full shelter under the lotus feet, under the lotus feet of the Lord. A sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily. Purport: so-called swamis and yogis generally make disciples by alluring them with material benefits. There are many so-called gurus who attract disciples by promising to cure their diseases or increase their material opulence by manufacturing gold. These are lucrative allurements for unintelligent men. A sannyasi is prohibited from making disciples through such material allurements. Sannyasis sometimes indulge in material opulence by unnecessarily constructing many temples and monasteries, but actually such endeavors should be avoided. Temples and monasteries should be constructed for the preaching of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, not to provide free hotels for persons who are useful for neither material nor spiritual purposes. Temples and monasteries should be strictly off limits to worthless clubs of crazy men. In the Krishna consciousness movement, we welcome everyone who agrees at least to follow the movement's regulative principles: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. In the temples and monasteries, gatherings of unnecessary, rejected, lazy fellows should be strictly disallowed. The temples and monasteries should be used exclusively by devotees who are serious about spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the word arambhan as meaning matadi vyaparan, which means attempts to construct temples and monasteries. The first business of the sannyasi is to preach Krishna consciousness, but if, by the grace of Krishna, facilities are available, then he may construct temples and monasteries to give shelter to the serious students of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, such temples and monasteries are not needed. A peaceful, equipoised person who is factually advanced in spiritual consciousness does not need to accept the symbols of a sannyasi, such as the Tridanda and Kamandalu. According to necessity, he may sometimes accept those symbols and sometimes reject them. Purport: there are 4 stages of the renounced order of life: Kutichak, Bahudak, Parivrajacacharya, and Paramahamsa. Herein, Srimad Bhagavatam considers the Paramahamsas among the sannyasis. The Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis cannot attain the Paramahamsa stage. This is because of their impersonal conception of the absolute truth. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. The absolute truth is perceived in 3 stages, of which Bhagavan, or realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is meant for the Paramahamsas. Indeed, Srimad Bhagavatam itself is meant for the Paramahamsas, Paramo Nimat Saranam Satam. Unless one is in the Paramahamsa stage, he is not eligible to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. For Paramahamsas or sannyasis in the Vaishnava order, preaching is the first duty. To preach, such sannyasis may accept the symbols of sannyas, such as the danda and kamandalu, or sometimes they may not. Generally, the Vaishnava sannyasis, being Paramahamsas, are automatically called Babajis, and they do not carry a kamandalu or danda. Such a sannyasi is free to accept or reject the marks of sannyas. His only thought is, where is there an opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness? Sometimes the Krishna consciousness movement sends its representative sannyasis to foreign countries where the danda and kamandalu are not very much appreciated. We send our preachers in ordinary dress to introduce our books and philosophy. Our only concern is to attract people to Krishna consciousness. We may do this in the dress of sannyasis or in the regular dress of gentlemen. Our only concern is to spread interest in Krishna consciousness. What's our only concern? It's utilitarian. Although a saintly person may not expose himself to the vision of human society, by his behavior his purpose is disclosed. To human society he should present himself like a restless child, and although he is the greatest thoughtful orator, he should present himself like a dumb man. Purport: a great personality, very much advanced in Krishna consciousness, may not expose himself by the signs of a sannyasi. To cover himself, he may live like a restless child or a dumb person, although he is the greatest orator or poet. 11. As a historical example of this, learned sages recite the story of an ancient discussion between Prahlad Maharaj and a great saintly person who was feeding himself like a python. Purport: the saintly person met by Prahlad Maharaj was undergoing ajagara vritti, the living conditions of a python, which does not go anywhere but sits in one place for years and eats whatever is automatically available. Prahlad Maharaj, although with his associates, met this great saint and spoke to him as follows. Prahlad Maharaj, the most dear servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, once went out touring the universe with some of his confidential associates just to study the nature of saintly persons. Thus he arrived at the bank of the Kaveri, where there was a mountain known as Sahya. There he found a great saintly person who was lying on the ground, covered with dirt and dust, but who was deeply spiritually advanced. Neither by that saintly person's activities, by his bodily features, by his words, nor by the symptoms of his varnashrama status could people understand whether he was the same person they had known. Purport: the inhabitants of that particular place on the bank of the Kaveri, in the valley of the mountain known as Sahya, were unable to understand whether that saint was the same man they had known. It is therefore said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Vijnana Bhujai. A highly advanced Vaishnav lives in such a way that no one can understand what he is or what he was. Nor should attempts be made to understand the past of a Vaishnav. Without asking the saintly person about his previous life, Prahlad Maharaj immediately offered him respectful obeisances. The advanced devotee Prahlad Maharaj duly worshipped and offered obeisances to the saintly person who had adopted a python's means of livelihood. After thus worshipping the saintly person and touching his own head, to the saint's lotus feet, Prahlad Maharaj, in order to understand him, inquired very submissively as follows. Seeing the saintly person to be quite fat, Prahlad Maharaj said, "My dear sir, you undergo no endeavor to earn your livelihood, but you have a stout body, exactly like that of a materialistic enjoyer. I know that if one is very rich and has nothing to do, he becomes extremely fat by eating and sleeping and performing no work." Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not like his disciples to become very fat in the course of time. He would become very anxious upon seeing his fat disciples becoming bhogis, or enjoyers of the senses. This attitude is herewith confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj, who is surprised to see a saintly person adopting ajagar vritti and becoming very fat. In the material world also, we generally see that when a man who is poor and skinny gradually endeavors to earn money through business or some other means, and he then gets the money, he enjoys the senses to his satisfaction. By enjoying the senses, one becomes fat. Therefore, in spiritual advancement, becoming fat is not at all satisfactory. O Brahmana, fully in knowledge of transcendence, you have nothing to do, and therefore you are lying down. It is also understood that you have no money for sense enjoyment. How then has your body become so fat? Under the circumstances, if you do not consider my question impotent, kindly explain how this has happened. Purport. Generally, those engaged in spiritual advancement take food only once, either in the afternoon or the evening. If one takes food only once, naturally he does not become fat. The learned sage, however, was quite fat, and therefore Prahlad Maharaj was very much surprised. Because of being experienced in self-realization, a transcendentalist certainly becomes bright-faced, and one who is advanced in self-realization must be considered to possess the body of a brahmana. Because the bright-faced saintly person was lying down and not working, and yet was quite fat, Prahlad Maharaj was puzzled and wanted to question him about this. Your Honor appears learned, expert, and intelligent in every way. You can speak very well, saying things that are pleasing to the heart. You see that people in general are engaged in fruitive activities, yet you are lying here inactive. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj studied the bodily features of the saintly person, and through the saint's physiognomy, Prahlad Maharaj could understand that he was intelligent and expert, although he was lying down and not doing anything. Prahlad was naturally inquisitive about why he was lying there inactive. Narada Muni continued, when the saintly person was thus questioned by Prahlad Maharaj, the king of the Daityas, he was captivated by this shower of nectarine words, and he replied to the inquisitiveness of Prahlad Maharaj with a smiling face. The saintly Brahmana said, O best of the Asuras, Prahlad Maharaj, who are recognized by advanced and civilized men, you are aware of the different stages of life because of your inherent transcendental eyes, with which you can see a man's character and thus know clearly the results of acceptance and rejections of things as they are. Purport. A pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj can understand the minds of others because of his pure vision in devotional service. A devotee like Prahlad Maharaj can study another man's character without difficulty. Everyone okay? Okay. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full of all opulences, is predominant within the core of your heart because of your being a pure devotee. He always drives away all the darkness of ignorance as the sun drives away the darkness of the universe. Purport. The words bhaktya kevalaya indicate that simply by executing devotional service, one can become full of all knowledge. Krishna is the master of all knowledge. Aishvaryasya samagrasya virayasya yashasasriyaha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriday sharajuna tishtati. And when the Lord is pleased with the devotee, the Lord instructs him. Only to the devotees, however, does the Lord give instructions by which to advance further and further in devotional service. To others, the non-devotees, the Lord gives instructions according to the manner of their surrender. The pure devotee is described by the words Bhakti Kevalaya. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Bhakti Kevalaya means Jnana Karma Mishraya, unmixed with fruitive activities or speculative knowledge. Simply surrendering at the lotus feet is the cause of all a devotee's enlightenment and awareness. Simply surrendering at the lotus feet is the cause of all a devotee's enlightenment and awareness. Again, simply surrendering at the lotus feet is the cause of all the devotees' enlightenment and awareness. Is it Brahma in the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, remarked, he's the most intelligent being, and he studied the Vedas 3 times, which is difficult to do. And after he met Krishna, he surrendered because he realized that with his great intelligence, he couldn't understand anything of Krishna. In fact, he makes the statement that others may say that they understand Krishna, but I admit I don't know anything. And he said, if at some point scientists are able to count all the stars and all the grains of sand and dust in the whole universe with some supercomputer, still they would not be able to count your transcendental qualities. If we were able to circumscribe God by our intelligence, then he wouldn't be God. But he's always beyond our imagination and our intelligence. And Brahma realized that as the most intelligent being in the universe and finally surrendered. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiyavartam. Stane stita shutikatam tanuvan manobir e prayaso jito pyasitais trilokyam. And he advised that give up speculation to try to understand God and engage in devotional service, especially by hearing shutikatam. If you hear submissively, and this is the process of surrendering oneself to the system which has been advised by the great acharyas is the primary means. And there are varieties of activities, tat karma pravartanat, that one can engage in. And if one simply follows that process throughout one's lifetime, then one ripens like a fruit on the vine. Gradually, through the different phases of one's life, one becomes aware by the mercy of Krishna that one is not one's body. One becomes naturally joyful within the heart by seeing how one has a relationship with Krishna. And one also observes by taking shelter of Krishna that Krishna provides. One of the reasons I like this chapter, although very particularly it's for sannyasis, but anyone can be a sannyasi. Sannyas. Sannyas means where you place something. We have many things we can utilize in our life. We have our intelligence, we have our senses, we have many things in our life. And where we put them and how we utilize them is very important. Sang means everything together. And nyas means how you utilize or place something. Like when you put tilak, that's a nyas, because you're putting it in specific places with specific mantras. So sannyas means somebody knows how to use everything in the service of Krishna, where its proper place is. And if one is able to use all those things properly, then one is not connected to them in the normal way that people are in this material world by attachment, thinking these are my things, but simply one uses them for the service of Krishna and can live anywhere in any circumstance. So Brahma then said, Atapite deva padambujadvaya prasada leshanugrahita evahi janati tadvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya esho picharam bachimban. In his prayers to Krishna, that if one can get just a trace of mercy by worshiping your lotus feet, a lesha, means just a tiny trace, that one can understand everything about you, or something about you anyway. It can become, you become aware of the Supreme Lord, and you attain all good qualities in the process. Yastyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinshana sarvaragunas tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna munoratena sati dhavato bihi. 5th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 5.18.12. The great overture of 5.18.12. Says that by engaging in Krishna service and getting his mercy, then naturally good qualities come out. Everything is provided through the process of devotional service. And just a trace of mercy from the Lord's lotus feet situates one properly in the path of self-realization. So this system of surrender is highly recommended, and Krishna gives it at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaishami ma sujaha. Abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not worry. Do not fear. Do not hesitate. Ma shuchaha. And one who has this simple understanding that just by surrendering to Krishna, everything else comes naturally, and Krishna will take care of everything, then becomes perfectly situated in devotional service, even though he or she may be a neophyte in the process. May I please have the 4th canto, Fourth Canto, 420:31. Who knows what that is? And who dares me to read this verse, 420:31? Who dares to hear it? This is about surrender. So if something you're inclined to, then you should lean into this verse. And if something that it frightens you, you should grin and bear it. From Prithu Maharaj, my Lord, due to your illusory energy, all living beings in this material world have forgotten their real constitutional position and out of ignorance are always desirous of material happiness in the form of society, friendship, and love. Therefore, please do not ask me to take some material benefits from you, but as a father, not waiting for the son's demand, does everything for the benefit of the son, please bestow upon me whatever you think best for me. All say, please repeat if you dare. You ready? My Lord, due to your illusory energy, all living beings in this material world have forgotten their real constitutional position. And out of ignorance, they are always desirous of material happiness in the form of society, friendship, and love. Therefore, please do not ask me to take some material benefits from you. But as a father, not waiting for the son's demand, does everything for the benefit of the son, please bestow upon me whatever you think best for me. May I have a Sri Upanishad, please? What verse am I thinking of in the Sri Upanishad right now? Huh? Related to this concept. Huh? Actually, I'm thinking of verse number 17. Vayoranilamambratam atedam pasmantam shariram om kratosmara kritam smara kratosmara kritam smara. Why was I thinking of that verse? Any theories? Huh? Oh, all right, if you have to see the translation. The translation is, let this temporary body be burnt to ashes and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, Please remember all that I have done for you. Purport. Why was I thinking of that verse? Malini, you were smiling. Why do you think? What's in the purport that made me think of this verse?
Many times devotees think that when they leave the body, they may not be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. But this verse says that if you do your service and if you remember Krishna throughout your life, at the time of death, Krishna actually, please remember all that I have done for you. You remind me because I may not be able to remember you. And also in the purport, the one which says that just like the father does not wait for the son's demand because the father understands the heart of a child. So the father provides before the child asks. So similarly, if you're asking for pure devotional service, Krishna doesn't wait for them to ask, but he provides them.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, actually, this prayer, number 17 in Ishopanishad, is saying, please remember everything. But in the purport, Prabhupada says, the devotee doesn't have to ask that. Krishna knows. He remembers everything that the devotee does. And he also mentions that even if the devotee happens to forget Krishna at the time of death, Krishna doesn't forget him. He remembers everything the devotee's done. So, yes.
I heard somewhere in a lecture which actually distinguishes between Bhakti Yoga and Saranagati. Saranagati is an advanced form of Bhakti Yoga. It's complete surrender to Lord Krishna, Saranagati. And where it says that if people are not really totally surrendered but performing Bhakti Yoga, then they don't need to remember the name of Lord Krishna at the time of death in order to go back to Godhead. But those who are fully surrendered, and for them, they don't even have to remember the name of Lord Krishna. Krishna himself will take him back, him or back. That's what I heard.
You heard somewhere in some lecture? Can you say where? And I can imagine why the devotee wouldn't want to remember the name of Lord Krishna. But anyway, it's in the same vein. The idea is if somehow or other, because of the extreme conditions at the time of death, the devotee doesn't remember Krishna. Krishna remembers the devotee. Yes?
I was just remembering a little real-life incident that happened in, I think in Pune. Vanamala Krishna Prabhu was just mentioning in one of the classes. He mentioned that one of the devotee Mataji, she had undergone coma, and she did a lot of service in the temple. And so devotees would actually go and every day chant for her, and the doctor said that, her brain is like, you could do it, but there's nothing happening there. So just before she left her body, he said that there was a huge science miracle. Actually, she opened her eyes and she thanked everybody. She looked at everybody and she was so happy. And then she left her body. And he said suddenly you could see that there was so much effulgence in the room. And he said that I've heard so many people say about it. But Krishna, the doctors would never believe us because she was actually in coma. But Krishna made her remember, and then she saw the devotee, she saw Kunj Bihari while she passed away. So I was just remembering that. Hare Krishna.
Was it Raja?
I don't know the name. I don't know.
It may be her, but there are a lot of instances where this happened. I mean, there are more than a few. And those who are around for devotees who leave their bodies have develop faith because they see the process of somebody leaving their body. Of course, anybody leaving their body, it's an interesting process to watch, but especially for devotees, seeing how Krishna assists them at the time of death is miraculous. So I'm about to get to the section of hearing the words of the saintly Brahmana. He continues. We'd like to welcome everybody who's joined us on the internet tonight, so let's please say Hare Krishna to everyone. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining and expanding the vibration all over the world. The This is continuing text number 23. My dear king, although you know everything, you have posed some questions which I shall try to answer according to what I have learned by hearing from authorities. I cannot remain silent in this regard, for a personality like you is just fit to be spoken to by one who desires all purification. Purport, a saintly person doesn't wish to speak to anyone and everyone, and he is therefore grave and silent. Generally, a common man does not need to be advised. Unless one is prepared to take instructions, it is said that a saintly person should not address him, although sometimes, because of great kindness, a saintly person speaks to ordinary men. As for Prahlad Maharaj, however, since he was not a common ordinary man, whatever questions he posed would have to be answered, even by a great and exalted personality. Therefore, the saintly Brahmana did not remain silent, but began to answer. These answers, however, were not concocted by him. This is indicated by the words yata shrutam, meaning as I have heard from the authorities. In the parampara system, when the questions are bona fide and the answers are bona fide, no one should attempt to create or manufacture answers. One must refer to the Shastras and give answers according to Vedic understanding. The word yata shrutam refers to Vedic knowledge. The Vedas are known as Shruti because this knowledge is received from authorities. The statements of the Vedas are known as Shruti Praman. Known as what? One should quote evidence from the Shruti, the Vedas or the Vedic literature, and then one's statements will be correct. Otherwise, one's words will proceed from mental concoction. May I please have the first canto beginning with the verse, Veta tvam saumya tat sarvam tat vatas tadanugrahat Bruyu snignasya sishasya guruvo gurumapyuta. In the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear how the sages of Naimasaranya have placed Sutta Goswami on the Vyasasana after Sutta Goswami's father had been killed by Balaram. The reason that he had been killed by Balaram was because he was not qualified to sit on the Vyasasana. Although he had great learning, and he had studied the Vedas properly, when Balaram entered the assembly of sages, Romaharshan did not stand up to give honor to Lord Balaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he misunderstood all of what he had learned, as he didn't come to the right conclusion. Balaram, seeing that such a person would only mislead others, touched him with a kusa straw and killed him. And then the sages at that assembly told Balaram that we already gave him the benediction of long life, and now you've violated it, so please suggest something. And some of the sages suggested that the son is the representative of the father according to Shastra, and therefore if Romaharshan's son is installed on the throne, it'll be contiguous with his father speaking. And not only that, Sutta Goswami was greatly qualified to take that position. And here's why he's qualified. And because you are submissive, and I already quoted the verse, your spiritual masters, this is 118, and because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. Purport, the secret of success in spiritual life is in satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has sung in his famous 8 stanzas on the spiritual master as follows. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Only by his satisfaction can one please the personality of Godhead. And when he is dissatisfied, there is only havoc on the path of spiritual realization. It is essential, therefore, that a disciple be very much obedient and submissive to the bona fide spiritual master. Srila Sutta Goswami fulfilled all these qualifications as a disciple, and therefore he was endowed with all the favors of his learned and self-realized spiritual masters, such as Srila Vyasadeva and others. The sages of Naimasaranya were confident that Srila Sutta Goswami was bona fide, therefore they were anxious to hear from him. And in the previous verse, this is number 7, they say, being the eldest learned Vedantas, O Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead, and you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. And so what's being described here in this introduction is how a qualified person must speak, and that the audience also must be qualified, and even those, it's described a little later on, who introduce the speaker should be qualified. So there's an environment in which this transcendental knowledge can be transferred, and anyone can notice this for oneself. If you're in an assembly of people who are very eager to hear, then the transmission becomes very potent. And if you're in an assembly where people are not interested, I was at a program recently when traveling, and I won't name the city because it could be traced back. But there were some new people there, and some of them didn't want to be there, I could tell. They were relatives who I could see from, I just assessed the situation. I can see that a couple of them had been dragged along, older people. And they said, we're going, and you have to come. And when they were there, they were practically smirking at the situation and very inattentive. And while speaking in that group, it was palpable how much the spiritual message is waylaid or blocked because when people aren't receptive, it becomes a lot more difficult for the transmission to take place. But in an assembly where there are very highly qualified people like Narada Muni, and they ask a question, then everyone should really take notice of what's going to happen. And it's mentioned in this verse that I just read from the 7th canto about how the great sage recognized Narada Muni. Narada Muni recognized him, he recognized Narada Muni, and then he felt compelled to speak. So the process of hearing and chanting we know about as being primary and important in advancing in spiritual life. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said it must be done in the association of like-minded devotees who are more advanced than oneself. Should be done. And in that kind of environment, then the transmission is very powerful from the speaker to the listener and everybody else in between. The subject matter becomes very elevated. Furthermore, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions how when speaking in spiritual circles, one should refer to Shruti Praman. Shruti Smriti Pranadi Panchatriki Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhakti Rupatayaiva Kalpate. Rupa Goswami says in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the practice of devotional service that is not backed up or does not follow the Shruti, the Smriti, the Panchatriki Vidhi is simply a disturbance to society. So proper execution of devotional service depends on this. And also those who are advancing spiritually, who are following the Mahajans and are in the disciplic succession, should be in the habit of giving reference to where their spiritual theories are coming from. So if you say, if you state a theory, you should be able to back it up by Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or some other scripture. Otherwise, it's not as much appreciated by advanced devotees. Text number 24. Because of insatiable material desires, I was being carried away by the waves of material nature's laws, and thus I was engaging in different activities, struggling for existence in various forms of life. This is the devotee who has become completely detached from the material world, and he's telling about the process through which he's come to this realization of this position he's in life. Purport, as long as a living entity wants to fulfill various types of material desire, he must continuously change from one body to another. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that as a small piece of grass falls in a river and is tossed about with different types of wood and tree branches, the living entity floats in the ocean of material existence and is dashed and tossed amidst material conditions. This is called the struggle for existence. One kind of fruitive activity causes the living being to take one form of body, and because of actions performed in that body, another body is created. One must therefore stop these material activities, and the chance to do so is given in the human form of life. Specifically, our energy to act should be engaged in the service of the Lord, for then materialistic activities will automatically stop. One must fulfill one's desires by surrendering unto the Supreme Lord, for he knows how to fulfill them. Does that sound familiar? Does it? Where did you hear it? That's right. Even though one may have material desires, one should therefore engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That will purify one's struggle for existence. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of material desire, without any material desire or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the Personality of Godhead. Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karman yanavratam anukulyena krishnanu shilaram bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna, favorably and without desire for material profit or gain, through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. So, whatever condition of life one is in, one should go on with the process of devotional service and have full confidence that Krishna will rectify whatever one's obstacle, whatever one's anarthas or unwanted desires are within the heart. He knows how to arrange things perfectly so that one can overcome these particular obstacles and one can attain the perfection of life. It simply takes a consistency in practice. And there is an interim period in practicing spiritual life called anartha nivriti, during which one may be troubled by obstacles in the form of material desires. But here we're being urged to continue with the process of devotional service, even if one has material desires, and continue to worship Krishna and surrender to him. Even if it involves some material desire, Krishna will fulfill it in such a way that one will become purified of that desire. That comes out in the verse, in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, which begins with, what is it? Huh? Yeah, please. Satyam disati satyato. Could you get that verse, please? So this verse from the 5th canto, Artito nirnam jivartador swayam vitarte bhagavan anichatam icha pitaram bhajatam anishvaram, something like that. The verse says that one may have material desires and have taken to the process of devotional service and may petition the Lord again and again for these kinds of material desires. But still, but the Lord is expert at purifying the devotee. The Supreme Personality of Godhead fulfills the material desires of a devotee who approaches him with such motives. But he does not bestow benedictions upon the devotee that will cause him to demand more benedictions again. However, the Lord willingly gives the devotee shelter at his own lotus feet, even though such a person does not aspire for it. And that shelter satisfies all his desires. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead's special mercy. That's 5:19:27 for those who are keeping score. Satyam dishiti artito nirnam naivartato yet punar artita yata swayam vidate bhajatam anichatam ichapitaram nijapada palavam. You may approach Krishna with all kinds of requests for material desires, but he'll gradually remove those desires and replace them with his lotus feet. So, idea is, no matter what situation of life one is in, one should continue practicing devotional service. It's getting interesting because we're hearing the words of this great personality. And in 7:13:25 he says, in the course of the evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities due to undesirable material sense gratification, I have received this human form of life, which can lead to the heavenly planets, to liberation, to the lower planets, or to rebirth among human beings. Purport, all living entities within this material world are undergoing the cycle of birth and death according to the laws of nature. This struggle of birth and death is, in different species, may be called the evolutionary process, but in the Western world it has been wrongly explained. Darwin's theory of evolution from animal to man is incomplete because the theory does not present the reverse condition, namely evolution from man to animal. In this verse, however, evolution has been very well explained on the strength of Vedic authority. Human life, which is obtained in the course of the evolutionary process, is a chance for elevation, swarga parvarga, or for degradation, tiryascham punar astyacha. If one uses this human form of life properly, he can elevate himself to the higher planetary systems, where material happiness is many thousands of times better than on this planet. Or one may cultivate knowledge by which to become free from the evolutionary process and be reinstated in one's original spiritual life. This is called apavarga, or liberation. Material life is called pavarga because here we are subject to 5 different states of suffering, represented by the letters pa, pa, ba, bha, and ma. Pa means parishrama, very hard labor. Pa means pena, or foam from the mouth. For example, sometimes we see a horse foaming at the mouth with heavy labor. Ba means bhyartata, disappointment. In spite of so much hard labor, at the end we find disappointment. Bha means bhaya, or fear. In material life, one is always in the blazing fire of fear, since no one knows what will happen next. Finally, ma means mrityu, or death. When one attempts to nullify these 5 different statuses of life, pa, pa, ba, pa, and ma, one achieves apavarga, or liberation from the punishment of material existence. The word tirashcham refers to degraded life. Human life, of course, provides an opportunity for the best living conditions. As Western people think, from the monkeys came the human beings who are more comfortably suited. However, if one does not utilize his human life for swarga or apavarga, he falls again to the degraded life of animals like dogs and hogs. Therefore, a sane human being must consider whether he will elevate himself to the higher planets, prepare to free himself from the evolutionary process, or travel again through the evolutionary process in higher and lower grades of life. That's profound because there's a way in which one must consider these things carefully as one makes one's choices in life and forms one's habits. Which way are you going and what are you trying to attain? Because without guidance and a deliberate plan, by default one may not get the desired result and may miss the opportunity of human life. If one works piously, one may be elevated to the higher planetary systems or achieve liberation and return home back to Godhead, but otherwise one may be degraded to a life as a dog, a hog, and so on. As explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:25, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, those interested in being elevated to the higher planetary systems, Devaloka or Swargaloka, must prepare to do so. Similarly, if one wants liberation and wants to return home back to Godhead, he should prepare himself for that purpose. Our Krishna consciousness movement is therefore the highest movement for the benediction of human society because this movement is teaching people how to go back home, back to Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 13:22, it is clearly stated that different forms of life are obtained by association with the three modes of material nature. Karanam gunasangosya sarasadyoni janmasu. According to one's association with the material qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in this life, in one's next life one receives an appropriate body. Modern civilization does not know that because of varied association in material nature, the living entity, although eternal, is placed in different diseased conditions known as the many species of life. Modern civilization is unaware of the laws of nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the performer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. Every living entity is under the full control of the stringent laws of material nature, but rascals think themselves independent. Actually, however, they cannot be independent. This is foolishness. A foolish civilization is extremely risky, and therefore the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to make people aware of their fully dependent condition under the stringent laws of nature, to save them from being victimized by strong Maya, which is Krishna's external energy. Behind the material laws is the supreme controller, Krishna. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Therefore, if one surrenders unto Krishna, mameva ye prapadyante mayamev etam tarantite, one may immediately be freed from the control of external nature. Sagunan samatitaitam brahmabhuyaya kalpate. This should be the aim of life. We'll take a few reflections just to see what we've heard so far. Whoever gets their microphone.
Krishna knows what is best for us.
Krishna knows what is best. Krishna knows best. When I was a kid, there was a TV program called Father Knows Best. So Krishna knows best. He's our well-wisher and best friend. Suridam means the best friend. And he also is all-powerful. He can arrange everything perfectly. And he knows our past, and therefore he can arrange everything perfectly, so why not allow Krishna to arrange things for us and put that prayer that Prithu Maharaj said, that just like a father arranges for the son, because I don't know what to do, but you do, please arrange things for me in the proper way. It's a relief, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Gandharvika?
It's just around the same point I was thinking. It feels how Krishna may not satisfy the desires for which we pray for, but in the end he gives something higher. That gives so much, we can trust Krishna so much just for that one thing, because that he will do the best for us, because even the demigods, they just see that, oh, you did this austerity, just get off from my head, I'll just give you this, they just go off. And even some parents, like, even though they want the best for the children, but if the children keep on pestering, even though they know it's bad, they just, okay, you just get it and suffer like that. But how nice is Krishna? Like on Mother's Day also you gave that lecture of how Krishna is equal to like so many thousands of mothers. And he proves, this sentence proves that love that he has for us, that he just doesn't let us go just like that. So it's the same point that you said, but even though we may not offer that highest prayer of you do what is best for me, but guaranteed even if I make a wrong prayer, his love doesn't go astray from Krishna consciousness. So that's one point I wanted to share. Another point that I noticed is how Prabhupada is talking about the secret of life is to please the spiritual master. But the other side of the coin also, he says that dissatisfying the spiritual master causes havoc in spiritual life. And I was just thinking how it's very important that we understand what is there in the heart of the spiritual master and practice it in our lives, because doing some physical service is very easy, but how Prabhupada was practicing the essence and preaching what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said and satisfying his spiritual master that way means that's the real pleasing of a spiritual master, and by that we don't create any dissatisfaction in the heart of a spiritual master. And I said how we should see both of the things, like we should satisfy him, and at the same time we should not dissatisfy him because he's not there, I don't need to follow the principles or something like that. But he does get dissatisfied if we don't take some vow and don't practice it. So those are the two things.
So give me first I need another table. Oh, somebody can bring me a table, and then please, no, you get the books. I need Adi Lila, Adi Lila, first chapter, 34th, 35th verse. And also, after you bring that, then find the verse, I think it's in the Shloka book, but find the verse and purport that describes how one can destroy the creeper. Uti hati mata. Uti hati mata. Find that verse, please. Upari vichinda jar. Uti hati mata. Thank you.
So you'll read or I'll have a reflection.
Okay. 1 second. I just want to follow up with Gandharvikas. In the Adi Lila, Chapter 1, text number 35. It's talking about the spiritual master. So the whole book starts off with this idea of accepting a spiritual master, because there's a process through which one surrenders to Krishna. And there's a local agent through which one can connect to Krishna. And this is Krishna's system. And so this whole first chapter describes this idea of connecting to the spiritual master, both the Shiksha and the Diksha gurus. And here, one who's inquiring about spiritual life, getting help from somebody who knows about Krishna, who knows the science. The spiritual master is described by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kiba Vipar Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kinanoy, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta She Guru Hoy. Hey Krishna Tattva Veta She Guru Hoy. That a spiritual master is anyone who's conversant in the spiritual science. So then he says that there's no, a devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master, because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden. There's no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes this initiating spiritual master later on. In fact, there's mention, Prabhupada's godbrother once said, 135, purport, third paragraph, said that the spiritual master entraps the disciple by shiksha, and the disciple entraps the spiritual master by diksha. They come and say, I have to have initiations. One should always remember that a person who is reluctant to accept a spiritual master and be initiated is sure to be baffled in his endeavor to go back to Godhead. One who is not properly initiated may present himself as a great devotee, but in fact he is sure to encounter many stumbling blocks on his path of progress towards spiritual realization, with the result that he must continue his term of material existence without relief. Such a helpless person is compared to a ship without a rudder, for such a ship can never reach its destination. It is imperative, therefore, that one accept a spiritual master if he all desires to gain the favor of the Lord. The service of the spiritual master is essential. If there's no chance to serve the spiritual master directly, a devotee should serve him by remembering his instructions. There's no difference between the spiritual master's instructions and the spiritual master himself. In his absence, therefore, his words of direction should be the pride of the disciple. If one thinks that he is above consulting anyone else, including a spiritual master, he is at once an offender at the lotus feet of the Lord. Such an offender can never go back to Godhead. It is imperative that a serious person accept a bona fide spiritual master in terms of the Shastric injunctions. Sri Jiva Goswami advises that one not accept a spiritual master in terms of hereditary or customary so-called or ecclesiastical conventions. One should simply try to find a genuinely qualified spiritual master for actual advancement in spiritual understanding. And then talking about this idea of displeasing the spiritual master is a striking purport. This famous verse, Jari Vaishnava Parad Uti Hati Mata Upari Vachinde Tar Shuki Jayapata, that's Madhya Lila 19:156, in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his instructions to Rupa Goswami, says he's describing this process of spiritual growth as a creeper growing in the heart of the devotee. We're like gardeners. Every gardener knows you have to take care of the little plants. You have to go out and watch over them and make sure that they grow properly. And so he says, if the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. Purport. It's kind of heavy purport, so if you need to take a break, you can go get a drink of water or can turn off the speakers out there and stuff like that. But if you want to brace yourself and hear this, then just get a tight grip on your asan and prepare yourself. One's devotional attitude increases in the association of a Vaishnava. Tandera charana sevi bhakta sanibas, janame janame hoya e abhilash. By his personal example, Narottam Das stresses that a devotee must always remember to please his predecessor Acharya. The Goswamis are represented by one's spiritual master. One cannot be an Acharya, spiritual master, without following strictly in the disciplic succession of the Acharyas. One who is actually serious about advancing in devotional service should desire only to satisfy the previous Acharyas. Echai gosai jaranui taradas. One should always think of oneself as a servant of the Acharyas, and thinking this, one should live in the society of Vaishnavas. However, if one thinks that he has become very mature and can live separate from the association of Vaishnavas, and thus gives up all the regulative principles due to offending a Vaishnava, one's position becomes very dangerous. Offenses against the holy name are explained in the Adi Lila, chapter 8, verse 24. Giving up the regulative principles and living according to one's whims is compared to a mad elephant, which by force uproots the bhakti lata and breaks it to pieces. In this way, the bhakti lata shrivels up. Such an offense is especially created when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called guru avagya. The devotee must therefore be very careful not to commit offenses against the spiritual master by disobeying his instructions. As soon as one has deviated from the instructions of the spiritual master, the uprooting of the bhakti lata begins, and gradually all the leaves dry up. Bali Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. So, I like the point of the Abhavarga, which is recently we are preaching to the corporate, the Abha, and we are explaining about the first symptom of advancing in the spiritual life is parishram, means less work, less hard work towards achieving your career success or whatever it is, because that ultimately is linked in the five senses, which is you don't generate forms, and then definitely you don't have a disappointment. So the guy was asking, it looks like very reverse, because if you don't do hard work, then you may ultimately end up in more disappointment. I said, why? Because you will not get promotion, you will not get more responsibilities, you will not. So that is the thing which we convert towards Krishna, the same thing, more work for Krishna, then there is all the things becoming reverse. So ultimately the Amrita becomes Amar, Amrita. So those particular thing is really very catchy, and it can be easily explained to the people who are doing stress management and corporate giants, to explain in a nice graphical way. That's I find out very.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam says that unless the work that you're doing is creating in you a intense desire to hear about Krishna, then it's called shrama. Shrama means hard labor for no real purpose. That's insult to injury. You're working hard and you actually don't get anything out of it. It's shrama. Now the word ashrama means a place where you get relief from that, because shrama means hard work, and ashrama, we have the brahmacharya ashrama, the grihastha ashrama. It's the place where you get free from the shrama. And you get freedom from that. It doesn't mean a devotee doesn't work hard. Even devotees foam from the mouth, they work so hard to try to fulfill the order of the spiritual master, but it's a different kind of work. It's apavarga. That foam means something, that hard work means something. And you're free from useless labor when you move into the ashrama situation of life, properly situated. A few more reflections, yes. Front row.
All the purport was nice, but one thing I liked was how Prabhupada commented about the Darwin, that his just says one-sided evolution, that he just says from monkey to human, but he doesn't know how you can go down from human to monkey.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a misunderstanding of the entire setup that we're actually kshetragya, we're residents inside a body that's been awarded to us because of our work in the material world. And that if you don't take it seriously, then you can lose the opportunity and go the other direction. It's altogether possible.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment to the Darwin's theory, was that how the scientists, they constructed, based on the skeleton remains, that they found that how from an ape suddenly, we get the Homo erectus, a person stands straight. And then someone commented that it could also be the other way around also. So it's such a, it's such a basic fact that how can the scientists just forget this and, just proceed in one direction, that this is how I'm putting all the skeletons, so this is how evolution is happening, and they don't talk about devolution in the opposite direction. So one thing which I liked was that just surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of every cause of a devotee's enlightenment and awareness. And I have started noticing that as I'm spending more time in Krishna consciousness, I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm capable of doing nothing. Like when I first started, it was like, okay, here are a set of books, I'll read it, I'll understand, this is a shloka book, I'll memorize it, and I had a nice spreadsheet, I had everything laid out, I will do all that. But I've started noticing that simple thing, I sit in the morning and say, I'll control my mind. You can't even do that. And so slowly I'm coming to that conclusion in that situation that I have to constantly pray to the Lord all the time and, ask Him that please help me, please help me. Like, nothing is in our hands. So I really like that point, that whatever we get actually comes just from surrendering to Krishna. Right.
Thank you for reminding us of that. Radhakripa, and then back to Malini.
Maharaj, when you were talking about Lord Brahma, I was just thinking at the time when he has read Vedas 3 times. If he is telling that he could understand, then at least I should stop mental speculation at my level. So it is easy to, you started going through, okay, let me find out where is the truth, what is it. But since you already mentioned that, so we should take that as a reference and just enter into some devotional service. So that is the only way.
It's important in the process of surrender to continuously hear. And understand our existential situation. The Sambandha Gyan, what is my relationship with Krishna and what is my relationship or non-relationship with the material world. Actually, we do have a relationship because it's Krishna's external energy. But by hearing that continuously, we can get our bearings here in this world. And there's every possibility of moving forward without making mistakes. Don't do stupid stuff. That's what gets you in trouble. In fact, I might have mentioned during the temple president's meeting, for some reason, somebody invited a consultant from law enforcement, and he gave a talk about how to survive an active shooting. And that means sometimes people go around and they'll walk into a movie theater or a church or something like that, and they just start shooting everybody. So apparently somebody wanted to know how to survive such a situation. So he gave us a long talk, scientific talk, about how to survive that. First thing is you have to run as fast as possible to get away. Don't try to be a hero, and so forth. And the second thing is if you can't do that, you have to hide in a really good place. And the third thing he said is that you have to fight if you come up against it. So one thing he said about that was that when you do fight, you have to have a fully committed defense. And I thought about that carefully. He said when it comes up to fighting for your life, you can't think, well, I'll just try to, slow the person down or something like that. He said, no, put your full force into trying to hurt or kill the person who's attacking, and with all your strength, and don't hold back anything, because it's a last resort. It's a very dangerous situation. And so fully committed defense, he said. And I was thinking how the more we develop a fully committed defense against Maya, if you take a half-hearted approach to defending yourself from the onslaught of material nature and Maya, then at some point she'll win. She will exploit your non-committed attitude. If you're non-committal, she'll exploit it at some point. If you have a fully committed defense, then you can be successful. Another thing that he said that I wrote down was don't do stupid things. Observe your environment and don't do something stupid. Don't walk into the line of fire. So he said, 4 words, mantra, stupid gets you killed. Everyone say. So I've seen also, human life is a great opportunity, but you can make a really stupid mistake by doing something that could actually jeopardize your entire reputation, your entire life. People do these things all the time, really stupid things. Even people in high positions, they may do something really stupid and then jeopardize everything that they've gained over many, many years. So it's important to remember not to do stupid things. Don't be stupid. Yes? What?
Deviate from the spiritual master's instruction.
You don't deviate from the instructions?
Of spiritual master.
Don't take a chance. I saw, a long time ago, a devotee who had been engaged in devotional service a long time apparently had a past habit he had a heroin addiction. And he just happened to be flying home from India, stopped over in Thailand where heroin is available. And I guess just out of a whim, from past bad habit, he decided to try heroin again after so many years. And he died in some seedy hotel room. And imagine what you might be thinking, after you made that stupid mistake. So be careful not to do stupid things. And it means you have to fortify yourself by being in good association and hearing regularly, so you develop a strong intelligence not to do stupid things. And the third thing I wrote down that he said is that it's, I better look to make sure I say it correctly. action always beats reaction. Action beats reaction. Means prepare yourself and do proactively what you need to do, and don't wait till you have to react, because you may not do it properly. Okay, there was more, yes. Vaisesika Shiromani.
I like the part where the word came, Bhaktya Kevalaya, where we read in the purport that just by executing devotional service, one gets all the knowledge.
Yes, and this is important to focus the mind, and one's surrender comes from this point of understanding that just by devotional service, everything else will come. One doesn't have to deviate into jnana, karma, yoga, any of these other things, but if one simply follows the path of bhakti and depends on Krishna's mercy and the mercy of the spiritual master, then everything will come of its own accord naturally. Thank you. Nalini?
Ruchi, I like the part about the lesha, the trace only, and sometimes in devotional service it could be overwhelming. When you're reading the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you find that you don't understand anything in it, and how to understand Krishna in that way. But this part, that only by a trace of mercy, then a devotee can understand a little bit of Krishna or more of Krishna. Also reminded me what Madhavananda Prabhu told when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he used to take darshan of the deities. He used to take out his glasses and he used to see the deities, because he was looking for mercy to come rather than he trying to get to see something in Krishna. And same as with when we were reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he was invalid and blind, but by the mercy that he was able to write the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. So.
Yeah, and this lesha, there's a way in which Swabhavika Jnana Balakriya Cha, this verse from the Shastras explains how Krishna's mercy works quite automatically in one's life. We may not understand it or perceive at first how it's working, but if one strictly sticks to the path of devotional service throughout one's life, then one begins to see Krishna's mercy unfolding in miraculous ways beyond what one could ever imagine. Krishna can make arrangements. Prabhupada used to marvel at how his life unfolded, because he said, I just stuck to the process by following the order of my spiritual master. And from that, something extraordinary came out, which was the fulfillment of his own desire to spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world on behalf of his spiritual master. And how would that be possible from a material platform when you start with nothing and you have no facility or anything like that? But Krishna made it all possible in such a miraculous way that it will be remembered for all time what happened. I mean, it already is practically all over the world. At some point during the day, someone's telling the story of Prabhupada coming over on the Jaladuta. Any class you go to, somebody's going to say, but Prabhupada got on the Jaladuta and he came over, and then look what happened, and so forth. How did that miracle happen? Because he focused his mind on the order of his spiritual master, and that's what he repeated over and over again, that this came because of mercy. And Krishna arranges things in miraculous ways beyond what we can practically see. So it's a pretty exciting journey if one can focus one's attention more and more on following the order of the spiritual master, helping to spread the Sankirtan movement and so forth, and putting one's faith in Krishna. It becomes exhilarating. So you don't know what's going to happen next, but you know Krishna's got his hand in it, so it's going to be something miraculous. Otherwise, if you don't take shelter, then you're kind of guaranteed to go in the same routine in the material world. But for devotees who are kind of halfway, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it's also a little bit of torture, because you know that you're better situated by surrendering to Krishna, but I'm still holding on to something, and that becomes a source of anxiety. But Krishna is named Lord Hari because he helps to take away that anxiety, and if you don't give up voluntarily, which is the best idea, then he helps you by putting you in a very tough situation where you're forced to give it up. And then he fulfills your ultimate desire, which is to take full shelter of his lotus feet. But always consider that voluntarily, if one can develop this attitude that I voluntarily surrender to Krishna, then one's life becomes particularly productive, the more we can develop that. In the back row, do we get a mic back? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This point is also, regarding the Darwin's theory that Mataji explained, and where Prabhupada considers that it doesn't look at the other side. And one example is the example of horse and donkey. If you see, they have striking similarities, but if you on a closer speculation, you'll find there are there are a lot of differences on microscopic and macroscopic level. And also in aquatics, apart from this, in aquatics it cannot explain the diversity and the similarities amongst them. And also it says that the random process, when it says survival of fittest, on one platform elephant is very powerful than lion, but at certain point lion subdues the elephant. So it means that things are not random, and there is a supreme intelligence behind it. And in the last part of the paragraph that we were reading, it is said that Krishna is in control of material energy, which in turn is applicable for, which is responsible for the natural laws. So Krishna is not an alternative to things that we cannot understand, but is the cause of the. When scientists, they say it's something, scientists or people who don't understand the laws, they sometimes say that it's because of God, but actually Krishna is the one who induces the science. It's not an alternative, but the reason for it.
Thank you very much for encapsulating that within a few seconds. Sachinandana Nimai.
Hare Krishna. First of all, my apologies for coming late. In the purport, Prabhupada always does things with a reason. In the purport I see it's written, one cannot be an acharya. In bracket he writes spiritual master without following strictly on the disciplic succession of acharya. And at the last he says, the devotee must therefore be very careful not to commit offense against the spiritual master. So why Prabhupada sometimes does, he has to explain things in bracket in terms of spiritual master, and then he has to put the word acharya. And as acharya in ISKCON, we have just Srila Prabhupada as acharya. So, if we can have samanvaya and both of that join together, how do we, it's a better way to understand that.
Was that a question?
Yeah.
Well, there's acharya with a small a and acharya with a big A. Because acharya means achar, one who shows by example. Teachers are acharyas because they teach by example. And we recognize the Mahajans. There are particular Mahajans, and we recognize our founder Acharya. It gives us, especially we have this situation in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where we are anchored by having an Acharya. You can go to various temples in India. For instance, if you go to Radha Govindaji temple in Jaipur, very blissful, everyone there coming to Mangalarti and everything, no Acharya. You have Radha Govinda directly, and you have all the people, thousands coming to Mangalarti. It's a very sweet situation, but the specific progress and the nucleus for actual society or organization is not really there. But we have that great benefit to be anchored by this common allegiance to our Acharya. It's as natural it's a natural tendency of every living entity to have a leader because we're parts and parcel of Krishna. And we see it in every aspect of life. And so in our society, having a central and a very powerful presence of Srila Prabhupada and his specific guidance, the way it's all unfolded, it's very fortuitous for everyone who comes into this particular organization, because then they have the shelter of the Acharya, and it helps to keep harmony and focus. But then again, we also have to have the examples of those who are following the founder Acharya, and they become Acharyas because they're setting the example of how to follow the Acharya. Practically, that's the meaning of the disciplic succession, that one who understands and then follows properly. And so we recognize Prabhupada as the founder Acharya, and then, therefore we have a way of having a central focus on his teachings and his example and so forth. But within that, if we didn't have other acharyas with small a, who are followers of the founder acharya, then we really wouldn't have a movement, nor would we notice any or have any particular impetus for following the acharya, because where is his success if he wasn't able to inspire some others and those who follow his instructions to come up to a certain standard spiritually. And the specific instruction of the Acharya, and particularly Srila Prabhupada, was that he was passing on Lord Chaitanya's instruction, was that everyone should become qualified, everyone should become a guru, and help to spread the Sankirtan movement. It's a cooperative effort, and those who take shelter in ISKCON have that great benefit, foundational point. No argument that there's central presence of Srila Prabhupada, and that everyone there in that context is free to make unlimited spiritual advancement and help others do the same. Manjula Kanta?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, when you were talking about mercy, I was thinking that many times in our life we feel like we've crossed an anartha. We have an issue with certain things and we learn to overcome it. We develop a resistance to the thing that attracts us, which is not good for us. And then after some time, we notice we again slip and fall. I don't know if it applies to everybody, but I notice that, given half a chance, as we say, we are susceptible, like the heroin addict, to go back to the same old flavors that we do. Is it only the mercy of the Lord that finally saves us? Because a lot of times I wonder, we do learn a lesson every time we slip and fall. And the dhoti is cleaner and the mud looks worse. So you start waking up and saying, even a little bit is too much for me. But ultimately, sometimes I feel it's not, that mountain is a little too high to climb alone. Is it only the mercy of the Lord?
There's a great satisfaction in becoming mature in spiritual life, which means learning to be very careful and not taking anything for granted. And actually, maturity means generally and usually that someone has been through a series of slips and falls and learning how to get back up again. And that, a child learns to walk by slipping and falling. Somebody learns to ride a bicycle by wobbling and falling and then getting up and so forth. And a musician learns by failing. And in any description of successful people, there's always this hero's journey in which they overcame great obstacles and sometimes were challenged by them in unusual ways, and that's why they've become who they are. And there is a way in which we can develop maturity through good association and practice over time. And that means we should also have a healthy fear of Maya and keep that mentality that I'm not above slipping and falling, no matter what situation I'm in. This actually helps to prevent one from slipping and falling, because the moment that I become a little bit confident or lax, that, not that one doesn't feel confident, because one can actually feel the mercy of the Lord when one begins to advance in devotional service, but even that point, one should have a healthy fear of Maya. Prahlad Maharaj said it even after he met Lord Nrsingadev, that I'm not afraid of you, but I'm afraid of your Vishnu Maya, because it's very dangerous. It's pretty scary, what can happen. So, yes, there may be instances during which one is revisited by some material desire that one thought one had overcome. But the prescription in the scripture is supada mulam bhajata priyasya taktanya bhavasya hare priyasya vikamayat shot patitam katanchit dhunoti sarvam hridi sanivishta, that such a person should understand that Krishna is there within the heart, and that he will rectify that if one continues with the process of devotional service. And there is a stage at which one begins to see that the intervals of those slips widens quite a bit. And then one can understand that there's a point at which that there aren't any. But still one should remain a fool before one's spiritual master and not assume that I'm safe from the dangers of the material world. And that's partly what a mature attitude is. Do we have anybody from the internet? Could we hear from somebody from the internet, please? And could you please reset up the yajna for our, let's do that really quick.
So Aditi Mataji, she says, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for a great class. I like that how Krishna takes care of his devotee even at the time of death, even if the devotee fears to forget Krishna. That shows so much pure love Krishna has for his devotee at every time. Krishna always does the best for everyone in every situation. Therefore, complete surrender to the spiritual master and Krishna's service is the only key to attain Krishna's eternal love. Hare Krishna.
Boy, I like Aditi's comments. They're always so powerful and well-rounded. Thank you. Very nice, Aditi. What else?
And Vaikuntha Nayak Prabhu from India.
Vaikuntha Nayaka ki jai.
Jai.
He's lighting up the whole South India book distribution.
1 lakh.
Okay.
Consistency in devotional service matters. Whatever stage we are in, we can take to devotional service.
Consistency. That's such an important word, consistency. It goes such a long way. Find consistency in practice. Yeah.
And then Bhakta Nikol says, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, it is very awakening to know the definition of sannyasi. One who utilizes everything in Krishna's service. Dandavat Pranam. And
Beautiful. Thank you, Nikol.
One more by Shyamlangi Mataji. I like the point in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:13-22, purport that when the Lord is pleased with a devotee, he instructs him to advance in devotional service. To non-devotees, he instructs according to the manner of their surrender. So we must really endeavor to please Krishna.
Yeah, that's really nice. There's a special way in which Krishna helps those who fix their minds on him completely in devotional service and gives instruction. One thing is, the devotee doesn't, who becomes fully absorbed in the process of devotional service and also carrying out the order of the spiritual master, it expands. It becomes more and more engaging. And then practically one doesn't have time to engage in anything else. And at that point, also, Krishna begins to, as he says in the Gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paripasate tesham nityam dyuktanam yogakshemam baham yaham. I care what you lack and I preserve what you have. And so to those who with abandon give themselves to Krishna, the order of the spiritual master is, in our cases, helping to spread the Sankirtan movement, taking one's service very seriously, and don't have time for anything else, then Krishna begins to make up for everything else. And then there's this reciprocation in which the devotee realizes that Krishna's taking care of everything, and that I should surrender more. And then Prabhupada describes a competition. The devotee's trying to serve Krishna more, and then Krishna's trying to serve the devotee more. And they develop this competition between. And then, if one can serve the devotee, because Krishna wants to serve the devotee, but the devotee will never take service from Krishna. So then if you serve the devotee, who Krishna wants to serve, and can't because the devotee won't accept service, then Krishna appreciates your service much more than if you serve him. So we should always serve devotees. Yes?
I also like the points about the sannyasis where Prabhupada says that they should be willing to give up the marks of the sannyasi.
What?
They should be willing to give up all the marks of a sannyasi.
Yes.
Like, for example, he himself did, he traveled overseas, although he was not supposed to do that, in the interest of spreading Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's the key there.
He also mentioned there that, if you can't carry the water pot kamandalu, or even wear sannyasi dress, we don't care so much. We care about spreading the interest in Krishna consciousness all over the world. This is we can sell out to this whole idea. This was the mood of Prabhupada and our most recent acharyas, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So feel free to fully absorb yourself in this activity of spreading Krishna conscious movement. And also, if you do it locally with full intensity and all concentration, it will naturally export all over the world. Do your service well here, figure out how to do it perfectly, and then Krishna will help you to expand it. Go Premanande Haribol. And
Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.